Welcome to Municipal Affairs. Last month, Canada's capital welcomed over 2,000 municipal leaders from across the country for the annual Federation of Canadian Municipalities Tradeshow and Convention. From bustling cities to remote rural communities, delegates gathered in Ottawa to share ideas, confront challenges, and work towards a stronger future for municipalities across Canada. Now, the agenda was packed, from calls for bail reform and urgent appeals for stable, predictable federal funding to in depth discussions on mental health, addiction, and the fight against digital misinformation. These are the everyday realities faced by communities from coast to coast to coast, and the FCM Convention provided a space for collaboration and action. But the event unfolded against a sobering backdrop: the escalating wildfires in northern Manitoba and Saskatchewan. As delegates met in Ottawa, news broke of evacuations back in Manitoba, with residents being moved from Lynn Lake and Flin Flon to safety. Now, we caught up with Brandon Mayor Jeff Fawcett, who was in attendance at the convention, to talk about what his community is doing to support these evacuees and what the crisis means for Manitoba, and why being part of an organization like FCM matters now more than ever. Mayor Fawcett, thank you so much for sitting down with me. You, as the mayor of Brandon, Manitoba, the second largest municipality in Manitoba. Why is it important for Brandon, Manitoba to be here at this convention in Ottawa this week?
Well, we do lots of collaborating with different communities all over the place. You know, we're one of those rare ones where we're not just part of AMM. We actually also a non-voting member, but we go in with Saskatchewan as well and Suma. And part of it is because we share so many things in common. We like knowing how things are working, and Manitoba has that sort of rare, half the population lives in the one city. So having discussions with the Prince Alberts, the Reginas, the Saskatoons, similar to us, it's better.
What are the common themes that you're hearing from those other mayors, other councillors from Regina, Saskatoon, Winnipeg, that you can talk about here at FCM that you can't do in Winnipeg? Because there might be some people who say, well, why does Brandon need to be at FCM? Because you're kind of hitting above your weight already.
Yeah, no, we and that being said, Mayor Gillingham and his council in Winnipeg are awesome, and we do lots of work with them, as well as all the mayors of Manitoba, which are a great collection. But, a lot of groups want to know about taxation. Brandon has had a higher tax increase the last few years, and there is a lot of communities kind of that know full well that they need to do similar things. And so how are you doing it? How are you articulating it, based on what? So we have a lot of discussions around that. And then infrastructure, everywhere's infrastructure, like water, wastewater. One of the big discussions that I've had with a lot of groups, and we will have no answer until maybe the fall, but at the throne speech, they did mention the development cost charge, 50%. Now, we have had development cost charges for a number of years, and very clearly where those development cost charges go, and it's all into infrastructure, new infrastructure. So I'm happy if the federal government can do that, but other communities they don't have them in place. They all vary differently. How's that going to get rolled out? That, in theory, is something the federal government is saying, we're going to help with some infrastructure that obviously you're having to come up with other resources to do. So that's more of a curiosity from everybody, is how are they going to roll that out?
I want to talk about something a little bit closer to home for a few seconds before we go back here, because Brandon, Manitoba is a stop along the way for many residents of Flin Flon, of Lynn Lake, who are being evacuated as we're speaking, or have evacuated as we're speaking. Your community has opened their doors, opened their hearts, and helped out as much as they can, where they can.
Yeah.
What does that say to you as mayor of your community, that your residents are willing to wrap their hands around people who they may not even know from northern Manitoba who are coming to their community?
No. Well, we're always proud of our community and the open door, and we know that we're taking people in at a difficult time. It's not, people aren't coming to holiday.
Yeah.
They're evacuees. They're displaced, I do want to make sure that like Thompson, Winnipeg, and Portage are taking the bulk right now of people. We may be only over just about 600 right now. Like last year, we had over 1,000 people for a long stretch of time, and the community does do its best to adapt. In the case of right now, there's an Emergency Measures Act in place, so if we do end up getting a whole bunch more, we will be putting them into different places, like a Keystone Center, and different arenas and things like that. Last night we had 3 military Herc planes show up sort of unexpectedly, because we're in emergency, and Red Cross was very quick to adapt to that and put them in. But yeah, our own residents, I think they have to just show that empathy for what's going on. Try to make people as welcome as possible, and it's just we're all Manitobans, and some people are put in a really bad place right now, and they have no timeline on a return, so it's very difficult. Yeah, so I'll look forward to getting back there, and I'll get through the hotels. I was talking with the National Grand Chief Woodhouse, who is a Manitoban, and she was going to be trying to get to some of them this weekend.
I want to get back to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Convention. Prime Minister Carney spoke day 1 of the convention. I'm assuming you were in that room listening to him, or you've heard his speech since. Are you optimistic about that new relationship that he talked about between municipalities and the federal government? Because he kind of alluded to wanting to create a new partnership between the two levels of government, where they would be working collaboratively a little bit more on housing, on bail reform, on resource development.
Yeah, so now we were doing that a fair bit, and some people were criticizing us for that. We were one of the groups that did get half funding, which some would argue was too directly tied to municipalities. I think that all of us need to be at the table together, the provinces, the federal government, the municipalities. I do think that there is a real newness to this government. Unfortunately, I wasn't in that session because I was across the river in Gatineau on another local project, so I had an opportunity to speak with the government team there, which does look like it's going to bode well, so it was a worthwhile visit, having to do with homelessness and housing, which is, again, a municipal on-the-ground issue, but provincial and federal.
Can I pick up on that for a second? Because mental health and addiction and homelessness is a key topic on a lot of people's minds in this convention. What do you get from those conversations when you hear from what other municipalities are going through? Is it best practices? Do you take back to Brandon, the city of Waterloo, I'm picking on the city of Waterloo for a second, but they're doing this. Maybe we can implement that in the city of Brandon, because residents of Brandon will go, why did the mayor go off to Ottawa for a convention? What is the benefit? Is it best practices you can bring back?
It is. You're always talking about those kind of things. One of the things I come back with often, though, is realizing, wow, we are doing things quite well.
Yes.
The province, our community groups do work really well together, not in the silos like some others are fighting. But for example, while I was here, Ottawa is an example of a city that has a federal building that they took over, that they actually are using as a navigation type center and that. And my discussions yesterday were with that same group, saying we've got a federal building and we have some emergency level work we need to do. What are our options here? And so, the example was right here in Ottawa on what their municipality did.
So my last question for you is, what is the benefit of the city of Brandon being part of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities that you couldn't do on your own? Why would the city of Brandon want to be part of this organization?
It's the collaborative approach with the federal government. And we're very fortunate. Kathy Valentino, she does a great job. Thompson, and the second vice president or vice president right now. Yep. So we do have that strong Manitoba voice there. Mayor Gillingham is the head of the Big Cities Caucus. So we do have a strong voice at the FCM, and they're the strongest lobby group that the municipalities have in Ottawa. And I like, just that complexity. You have the mayor of the largest city, and Kathy Valentino, who is Thompson, Manitoba. Like, so there's voices that cover our province really well in there, and of course they're doing it as well for the rest of the country. But you know, there's a lot of people that we deal with here all the time. There was a mayor from Ontario out here that we touched base on a number of different things. I'll be meeting with the Regina and Saskatoon mayors, who are both new, and I knew the previous mayors quite well. And so this is my opportunity to meet up with the new mayors and sort of exchange notes. But it is positive. It is a positive for us. And it also helps us tell our story and realize some of the things we do well and then the things that we can do better. But no, I think FCM is very valuable.
Mayor Fawcett, always a pleasure to sit down and chat with you. Next, we sat down with Scott Phillips, councillor for the rural municipality of Sifton in Manitoba, to reflect on the solidarity shown by fellow delegates during the difficult time and to hear what it was like attending the FCM Convention for the very first time. Councillor Phillips, thank you so much for sitting down with me. We are here at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities on day 3.
Yeah.
What brings you to the convention outside your role as AMM Vice President, but as councillor, what brings you here?
Well, I've heard lots about the FCM over the years on how you get, I don't know how many's here, 2,500 delegates, all energetic, ambitious, trying to make their communities the best they can and find innovative ways to do that. So it's just been great, like just to network and mingle and go to breakout sessions and so forth, and seeing how municipalities are coming together, and whether it's a regional project or an independent project, and how they're resourcing funds and strategies and tricks of the trade. It's just been overwhelming. It's exceeded my expectations for sure.
Is this your first FCM?
This is my first FCM, yeah.
Okay, so then that's a follow-up question right there.
Yeah.
Ottawa, it's the national capital. This is a great time to be second vice president and be here. What are you hoping to take away?
Well, to take away some key strategies on how to improve your municipality in an efficient manner, whether it's cost or time wise. It's there's just so many different avenues to make your RMs grow. Like my municipality is in a perfect location in Manitoba for growth, being between Virden and Brandon along the Trans-Canada. We've got so much opportunity to really develop an RM in a safe and sound manner, and that's why I'm here, is to see what we can do and how we can do it.
As a more rural councillor, and I say that because you are a rural community, do you get a sense that rural issues are on the forefront in this convention?
Especially today, it's based on rural municipalities. Now, you're sitting with some guys and they're saying, oh, my RM is small, it's only 30, 40,000 people. And I chuckle because my RM is 12 to 1,300 people. And we're 18 miles by 18 miles, so we're geographically a good size. And they look at us and I'm like, yeah, we're small. We're a small municipality, and so we have to make sure our dollars stretch. We can't turn a dollar into 90 cents. We got to turn that dollar into $1.10, and that's the key. And I really, I suggest to any municipal councillor, to my colleagues back in Manitoba and Prairies and everywhere, you should really come to this. You don't have to come every year, but you should really come once in your 4-year term and see what it's about. The information at the Tradeshow is like second to none. The different booths and they do pertain to municipalities of my size and municipalities of larger sizes. So it's a really good experience.
As someone from Manitoba, your heart must be breaking right now for the families and the residents of Manitoba who are being evacuated from their house, from Flin Flon all the way up to Lynn Lake. Your community, other communities have started rallying around the people who have started to come south to flee the evacuation zone. Does that give you pride that Manitoba is banding together to help the people who have lost or potentially losing their houses?
Yeah, it just shows you how Manitoba is proud and strong. We've sent some guys out of our mutual aid up there. They keep in close contact. I'm in close contact with councillors up in those part of the regions right now, different mayors and different friends, and just getting an update. Sometimes what you hear on the social media is not bang on, but we're getting it right from the sources, and it's terrible what's going on. But you have to look at a bit of a positive, that how quickly Manitobans come together in the time of need. They put political beliefs aside, they put ethnic beliefs aside. They're there for each other, and my heart goes out to all my friends and their families up in the northern parts that are like, this is not a planned power outage by any means. This is oh my gosh, we got to get out, and you can always say you can replace personal belongings, but you can't replace all those personal belongings. So I feel for them. I know I've talked to quite a few firefighters from southwest Manitoba that are up there fighting. hats off to them. You know, they're missing family time to go north and help strangers, and they're just, God bless them, what they're doing. Same as the guys up north, yeah.
So what's next now? So you're going to be heading back to Manitoba in the next few days after the convention wraps up.
Yep.
What do you hope to take back from FCM to Manitoba, to
Well-
the RM of Sifton?
Well, what likely do is I'll digest it all, and I may. Anyone that knows me knows I make a lot of notes, so I'll go through my notes and I write the names down, and I'll do up some follow-up emails, you know, and just see what can we massage into our municipality or our region, and I'll compare it with my colleagues. There's a lot of people from Manitoba here, and I'm blessed being the vice president of AMM, so I know most of them, and it's a great and we'll just talk. We'll just say, what did you get out of it? What could we get if we could do another presentation for, we'll say, Central Manitoba or whatever, and how could we work together on stuff? We've been fortunate, like Manitoba, I'm sure all the provinces are the same, but Manitoba, we're a pretty close province where your municipal family is a pretty good family to be a part of, and if you're not in a room, a session that they so much think you should be in, they'll pop you a text and say, hey, Scott, you know, come on over to this rural development one, or come to the ag one, or come to the one on veterinarian, and you know, it's just great. Teamwork is so essential, and you know, it's worthwhile experience. I'll say that 10 more times, but I just any municipal councillor, it's not a cheap venture. So if you're going to come, you got to make sure you get a lot out of it, and I really am confident the ones that I've talked to have got a lot out of it. It's just a tremendous event.
Scott, always a pleasure. Councillor Phillips, I should say, thank you so much.
The pleasure's mine as always.
We also spoke with Kathy Valentino, president of the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, and now, as of this convention, the newly appointed second vice president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Valentino reflected on the impact of the wildfires near Lynn Lake and Flin Flon in our discussion, and how that has informed her growing voice at the national level. President Valentino, thank you so much for sitting down with me and chatting at the last day of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. As the president of AMM, why is it important for AMM and Manitoba municipalities to be at a convention like this?
A couple of reasons. You know, every chance you get to network with the rest of Canadian municipalities around you, you gather more information on what municipalities are doing, and you create relationships that you end up leaning on. So the more that we can gather and build relationships, the stronger than Manitoba municipalities can be, and learn new ideas and then move those ideas forward.
I gotta broach the subject, if you don't mind, for a second, because everyone's thoughts and prayers are with the people of Manitoba this week as we celebrate municipalities, but we're also worried about municipalities, especially Flin Flon, Lynn Lake. As president of AMM, as a Northern Municipal leader, you're getting the reports that everyone else is getting. Take me through what you're feeling right now, if you don't mind.
Exhaustion is what we're feeling, and I think I said earlier today, you know, you come to these conferences to have a really good time and stay out late and have fun, and we've been, you know, more so staying up late, having calls and messages and texts and phone calls and stuff, and really not sleeping very good. So exhaustion would be right up there, but I can tell you, unfortunately, you learn a lot when you go through crisis situations, and, you know, I thank you for your comment. Yeah, absolutely. Northern Manitoba is on fire, and we have some great concerns with the town of Lynn Lake and the city of Flin Flon and many of our Indigenous communities that surround us. So a couple of takeaways I can say from that is I've learned, even speaking with Gerald, who's the mayor of Lloydminster, who talk about creating relationships Canadian-wise, border cities and border towns, our premiers need to know that there needs to be a conversation if we're going to have interprovincial barriers, a discussion, interprovincial barriers when it comes to emergencies or putting your province into a state of emergency. Border towns and communities need to be a part of that, because I live in Manitoba on my front step, you might be living in Saskatchewan on your front step. I'm evacuated, you're not. Causes a lot of confusion, I think, and makes it hard for municipal leaders in times of crisis. So I really hope that that can be something that we can get some conversations going. That's definitely something that needs to be discussed.
A lot of outpouring of support for the people of Flin Flon and Lynn Lake and other northern communities, First Nations. When you're here and you're speaking to delegates from across Alberta and Saskatchewan, which are going through relatively the same thing, there must be a sense of, I don't want to say brotherhood, because it's the worst brotherhood to be part of, but there must be a sense that we're all in this together. No matter what happens in Lynn Lake or Flin Flon, the people of Alberta will support them. The people of Nova Scotia will support them. So it must give a little bit of a reassurance, even though we're seeing pictures on TV right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the theme of this conference at FCM couldn't be better, stronger together, better together. That's true because, like Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, we're all in this fight right now. And it doesn't really matter right now what province you live in. We need each other to talk and share and just to realize that this is really happening. And it's really happening earlier and earlier every year. And it's scary. And it's good to have connections and contacts through this, that's for sure.
I can imagine what you're going to be going home to, but I've got to ask a simple question about the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Convention. What do you take back from this convention to make sure that the advocacy work that you did here, the work that was started here, doesn't end the moment you get on the plane to get back to Winnipeg to fly up to Thompson?
Well, first off, I'm going to drive back to Thompson.
Okay.
Because I want to buy my bedding plants and garden stuff, so I brought my truck and I'm going to make that long ride home. So
for you, it's nothing though. It's not a long ride.
I can do it. So, a couple of takeaways. I think that, and I'm hoping that there's been more of a message about how important rural municipalities are in Canada's whole big picture. And for Manitoba, we're a little bit unique that we're the center of Canada, and we have really, one big city, Winnipeg, and of course, the city of Brandon. But rural voices in rural Manitoba really matter, and that's important to us in Manitoba, and that's important when we advocate for Manitoba municipalities, that whatever federally government plans or projects or grant applications that they put out there, that there has to be a rural lens to them, and that's a real part of our advocacy for Manitoba municipalities.
I want to turn to your role as second vice president now, because you're officially entering your supposed to be second vice president here, but due to the things that happened, they happened, and you've been second vice president for some time. You're losing Scott Pierce, but you're gaining a new member from Dorval, the mayor. Are you looking forward to the table officers and this new era of FCM as you enter into the great unknown with the Carney government?
I feel like we've already been in the big unknown since this all happened these last 12 months, but excuse me. Well, I think one of the things is I got to make my New Year's resolution to learn French, because that's going to matter now on the table officers, I think. But all joking aside, because of a bit of the chaos we've been living in with U.S. and even a Canadian federal election, we've all really got to know each other quickly and really stepped up. So ironically, we've built a really kind of close network because we had to, and that's a good thing. So I just think we are just continuing moving on as we have been, and it was a fast pace, and so I think that we'll just continue that, and that's good, that momentum. Unfortunately, it's on the backs of U.S. tariffs, and we had to do all that, but yeah, it's going to be good.
You were relatively an unknown to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities as of Calgary last year, and you were a self-described unknown. Looking back on the last year, many municipal leaders might be going back to their community and saying, is it worth it? Is it worth to be part of the organization of Federation of Canadian Municipalities? As someone who's now not only active, but a table officer, do you feel like you get your worth from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, whether it be that advocacy, whether it be those meetings on the Hill? What do you get from being part of FCM that you're like, this is why we do it?
You're absolutely right. I was a complete unknown. I was not aware of FCM as in depth, I guess, as I do now. So do I think, yeah, I certainly do. After I see the work that FCM has done with the U.S. tariffs and right away going to work for Canadian municipalities, absolutely. And I see now the opportunity that we have with a new Canadian government. Whatever the government of the day was, we were ready and did a lot of, pre-election work and meetings, and I think that it's a huge opportunity, and I think that you could see that over this conference the last few days. I was the moderator for the rural infrastructure agenda. What do we want that to look like? What do we want to be able to offer to the federal government that we want to see in the next infrastructure funding program? So you can't do that if you're not at the table. And if you're not a part of FCM, you're not going to have a say. So we have to try and we have to speak up. That's our role. And it's a privilege to serve. And we have to do our best and try because we're being given this opportunity to serve. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth it.
President Valentino, it's always a pleasure. Our hearts are with you at this time right now, but I look forward to seeing you in Winnipeg. And finally, we close with one of the major highlights of the week, the acclamation of Vancouver City Councillor Rebecca Bly as the new president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. We spoke with President Bly on the final day of the convention to discuss her plans for the year ahead and how FCM continues to serve municipalities from coast to coast to coast. President Bly, thank you so much for sitting down with me on the very last day of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in beautiful downtown Ottawa, Ontario. First off, you've been here for the last 4 days. You've been crisscrossing for the last 10 months. How has this culminated into this weekend? How are you feeling?
Oh, it has been a wonderful weekend. As always, as you say, we visit people in their home communities, and then to have everybody together in one place here in beautiful Ottawa has just been wonderful to see. We've had a very lively few days with workshops and plenaries, study tours, all on the topics of municipal government. Of course, we started the first day with meeting with all the new ministers, or not all, but the particularly impactful ministers to municipal issues and priorities. And then, of course, the Prime Minister taking time to address our entire membership who was here. So that was wonderful.
I want to pick up on that just for a second, if you don't mind. You had the pleasure to sit down face to face with him on that stage, and all the delegates were hoping to hear something, and I think they did hear something about that renewed federal municipal relation, about having you guys as a strong partner. Are you optimistic about the future with what Prime Minister Carney has said on the stage?
Yes, I think that the Prime Minister brought a real sense of real talk and pragmatism. And so that's what we need, because that's what municipal leaders do. We don't speak high level and in the ether. We talk about on the ground and in the ground issues that are required to be city building and in community building. And I think that the Prime Minister really got that, especially being here at our annual conference at a time when decisions and programs are being developed, budgets are being put together, to really see that municipalities came out in force through the vehicle of FCM to advocate for themselves and their own home communities. And so there was just, I think, a moment of synergy in that moment where both they got to hear from the Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister got to really get a sense of what FCM's all about and how strong we are together.
A few of the key takeaways that I've noticed over the last 3 days of doing interviews with delegates is housing, infrastructure, bail reform, mental health, and addiction. Those are the key themes I'm hearing over and over again. As president, you've crisscrossed Canada. Are those the key topics that you're hearing that impact every single municipality, whether they are a major metropolitan like Vancouver or Toronto, or to the smallest community of Kyle, Saskatchewan?
Absolutely. Housing, affordable housing, which also helps tackle some of those other issues related to mental health addiction. Folks need stability. They need housing stability if they're going through treatment programs. Folks who are going through rehabilitation programs through a public safety lens also need stability in housing. So the fact that the federal government is finally back in the housing game in terms of below market units of housing, which we would call that in a Vancouver context where it's extremely unaffordable, on all measures related to housing affordability and availability. The fact that the federal government's back in the housing game to build affordable housing, I think, is music to our ears here at FCM. I've been with the organization for 8 years. I've been elected for 8 years. We have not seen enough housing being prioritized at the level that folks can afford. We're talking about the workers, we're talking about frontline responders, the teachers, the nurses, those that really hold up our communities. And so, I think that the housing piece and then the infrastructure that's needed to allow that housing to be built so that a toilet flushes, so that things work, and also infrastructure that is specific to rural. We announced our rural component yesterday. We're advocating for a specific rural infrastructure fund. And why that's important, and we really did get this through to the Prime Minister, I believe, is that we can have nation-building projects, but if once those trucks leave the ports with all those goods and products, if they can't get through our roads and our bridges without hitting a bottleneck, then we've missed a massive step in being able to build that national prosperity and economic development that's going to benefit all Canadians. So I think we've really hit the mark on some of those pieces where infrastructure links to economy, housing links to mental health and addictions, and that public safety, both on the RCMP staffing side, the funding side, also is going to impact that issue of repeat offenders and bail reform as well by addressing sort of the chronic offenders while being able to actually support folks getting back into stability. So as you can hear, everything is connected that we do at the municipal level. Everything has a thread into something else, and that's what municipal leaders bring to the table when speaking to different orders of government, provincial and federal.
You talk about the rural report that was released with yourself and Neil Como, the chair of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Rural Forum, if I'm doing that right. There seems to be a big push for rural topics at this year's convention. Why was that important? Because traditionally you wouldn't think Ottawa is the place to talk about rural communities, but it seems that at the Federation wanted to talk about rural communities this time. Why was that important for yourself and for the organization?
You know, I think there's always been a lens on rural, but perhaps not done in a way that really lifted up the voices of our rural members. We've always known it's important internally, but it's about what we project out as well. And a real focus at this time when economic development across the country is critical, and that can't just happen in our urban centers. We need to recognize that agricultural land, energy, moving goods and services, warehousing has to happen where we have a lot of land mass, and that happens in rural. Absolutely contributes to the national prosperity picture that we recognize our country is at a pivotal time to meet that moment and build, as the Prime Minister says, build, baby, build, and we're all for that, but we can't do that if we don't invest in rural, because that is really where where the rubber hits the road in terms of resource communities, and they have smaller populations there in rural Canada, so we can't simply just rely on property tax to put that infrastructure in place that's needed to make sure that the services are where they need to be for communities, and that housing is there for workers as we grow our country in a sustainable way, which means all size communities right across coast to coast to coast.
I want to talk about the future a little bit, if you don't mind, before I let you go. And you are losing Scott Pierce, but gaining Mark Dorval. Doré. Sorry, I apologize. I just had him on.
He was so Mark Doré is the mayor of Dorval. So there we go.
I knew I'd get that right. Are you excited about the future with this new board? I know it's some similar faces, but you're adding Mark the mayor onto the board, or the table officers, I should say. Are you excited about what the future of FCM looks like under the new leadership of you as full president now? I'm not sure if you were interim or sort of president, but are you excited about the future, what happens next year?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Scott Pierce has been a force at FCM. We wish him very well. He's retiring from municipal politics after I don't know how many decades. We'll miss him, but I know he's happy. He's going to put up that gone fishing sign and really mean it this time. So we wish him well and thank him for his many years of service to FCM. And looking at the current table officer and also the expanded executive from that, I'm very optimistic. I'm very excited. We have a hardworking team. We work together in a very unified way. We're all different, so we bring different lived experience and qualities to the table as table officers. But I also know that I can call on any of my table officers now to show up in members' communities, to do what they can. We've got each other's backs. Some of them are dealing with real emergencies in their home communities this weekend in Manitoba. Kathy Valentino, our second VP officially now. So yes, and we welcome Mayor Mark Doré as third VP, and I know he'll represent Quebec very well, the Quebec caucus, and I look forward to getting to know him better and working through this year's very ambitious advocacy agenda as we continue to build on the relationships that we started here this week with the new Prime Minister and Cabinet.
What's the advice that you give to delegates as they begin to head home? Because There's the tendency when you go to a convention that, okay, you get home and everything that you learned is just going to sit on the shelf. How do you ensure that the advocacy work that happened here, the networking that happened here as president goes on to ensure that you're not starting fresh in Edmonton in 2026?
Think of those first, 3 folks that come to mind that you met at conference. Text them, stay in touch with them, get on their social media, find ways to stay connected. Even if it's just a couple of the hundreds of people you've met, those relationships go far. They in my experience, are folks I continue to call on as a municipal leader. Learning from one another, that networking, as you say, is a critically important part. And this really is an opportunity for professional and personal development as local leaders. We're often tasked with so many different jobs. We are the jack of all trades when it comes to growing communities, and so having that sort of anchor to bounce ideas off of or just tell someone about your day is critically important, as well as continue to lean in to the FCM work, off cycle, if you will, between conferences. We have tremendous amount of tools to help smaller, larger communities make sure that they have the information they need, the data that they need to represent their communities well, and also to continue to push with their local MPs on what are some of those issues that we're carrying forward into the coming year. So I think at the end of the day, I know we're all busy, but FCM's here to support you. And any opportunity to lean in, put your hand up, let us know what you're up to and how we can connect with you and your community. That's what this next year is all about.
Final question, it's kind of a political one, but as president, you should be prepared for it. What is the benefit of a membership with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities that municipalities wouldn't get by just doing the advocacy work by themselves?
It's the theme of our conference this year. We're stronger together. And the reality is that we live in a massive country with very, very different challenges from coast to coast to coast. FCM is an incredible way for all of those different priorities and perspectives to be funneled into a united voice. And in that united voice, we have a much greater chance of connecting with the federal government on our advocacy priorities, the Housing Accelerator Fund, the Canada Community Building Fund, the Green Municipal Fund, and all the other funds and the things that we do, the Infrastructure Bank. We can advocate to CMHC. We're connecting with ministers. And what we know, and we saw that with the U.S. trade crisis this year, is that things are going to happen that we have not forecasted and planned for. So the benefit of being linked into FCM is the ability for FCM to be able to respond real time to an unanticipated urgency or crisis, and already have that membership and that relationship with FCM so that you have that voice at that table when we are advocating and showing up and have that seat at the table as a very, very significant level of government in the big picture of all orders of government to be building this country for Canadians. So we're here for our members, and so we hope that members see that the value is there for them too.
President Bly, always a pleasure to sit down and chat with you. I feel like this is the first of many conversations over the next year. Again,
yes.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for being here, Chris.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Municipal Affairs, which was only made possible by you, our generous supporters of the Cross Border Network. Your continued support and financial backing of this show makes episodes like today's possible. If you want to join the growing list of supporters, head over to the crossborderinterviews.ca website and support the show today. To stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, and follow us on social media. For even more content and to learn more about the stories and the people we feature on this show and our sister shows, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Again, your support means the world to us, so share this episode with your friends, your family, and help us keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs soon. Till then.